really know who you are up until that point. We might have some information that is available historically that would include cookies, but of course, browser privacy is turned on, that becomes a significant challenge. And the information that's stored there doesn't indicate the individual user that might have been using the browser, nor does it have information about preferences or what I'd like to do next. It's purely historical. We've then combined that and said, well, look, we have all of these marketing folks out the back end who can take this information, aggregate it, declare that you're in a particular segment that might be interesting, and now I can work out what ads to put out or how to potentially guide you through my site. But it's all kind of, well, maybe you fall into this category, maybe you don't. Who are you anyway? So until you check out, maybe using an identity at that point in time, you don't really know who you are. So then the concept here says this: what if we could actually provide information about who you are, attributes associated with you about your identity at the front door? So what if at the beginning of the process, you're on this website for 20 minutes, potentially browsing around trying to find information? What if there was actually information that the user was happy to release to you if you're a big box retailer, or that you were a social networking site that had a class of information that they were interested in releasing? What could you actually do? Well, right at the moment, you know, at PayPal, we have a very short period of time at checkout to actually run all that fraud risk analysis, for example. Really, really short period of time. We do really well at it, but we have to draw conclusions really, really fast in a very short period of time as you're trying to check out. But if through this whole process I actually had a set of claims or attributes or identity information, whatever you call it, the world changes potentially in ways that we haven't dealt with in a retail environment previously. So if I had 20 minutes, for example, then I could actually have the opportunity to analyze your transaction behavior or your website interaction and judge whether or not you were a high or a low risk from a fraud perspective. Why is that useful? Well, two reasons. Firstly, I can reduce the impact of my bottom line losses, which is really, really valuable. But also, maybe more importantly, I could say, you know, you seem to be in the 80% good category. I'd like to give you the streamlined experience because I know that unless you do something that's a little weird from this point, that you ought to get the quickest possible exit through my site as possible. Well, I've got a bunch of time that I can calculate that from the point in time you turn up. This is maybe interesting. So I can reduce friction in a bunch of different ways. And if you can convince consumers to share their preferences on some basis, then you might know, for example, that you're shopping for an iPod for Aunt Mary this time instead of a big screen TV. And so the opportunity to actually put up information that consumers care about could be interesting. And theoretically, at the end of this, we get to increase checkout completion. So that's the vision of what we could potentially achieve. We aren't even close to this yet. You know, we've got a long way to go. For many of us, just single sign-on is still a challenge that we're trying to deal with. And as we begin to interact across the network, you know, we run into these pragmatic problems. Can I use a social networking identity to interact with a financial institution in any meaningful way? What happens to my compliance limits? Can I actually expect that it's possible for me to actually validly use a financial institution's identity to interact with my blogging site, and what are the implications about what I'm sharing? It's all this interesting set of challenges around the relevance and the appropriate level of information that's being shared that are one of our bigger challenges. And that right at the moment, the issue is, well, you kind of pick your point and then try to build from there. What we do know is that actually promoting identities so that they've got more trust associated with them is a real challenge. That's how I feel on a daily basis. And so one of the things I last time I believe, and we saw in the mix here, is this, and I occasionally get beaten up at this. This is not saying that anybody wants to be the user of credit cards or the user of identity systems, just to be quite clear. It is saying, look, we actually have some interesting models where we do know how to share information with lots of participants that actually work. Anybody that's in the retail space understands the flow of credit information, the number of players, the dreaded interchange that we all have to deal with as part of that process. But all of it's about flow of information and value that's returned to lots of participants that are in this space. We know how that actually works. So we have models that we can actually look at and understand how they work and potentially might be applied. I'm not saying that this is the right one, but simply we do have instances where we know this actually can take place in work. So the thing I actually just want to leave us with here as kind of a kickoff is to say, look, there's this huge array of potential, particularly if we consider the opportunity to not only engage with our consumers in a meaningful way, but also to return value to them in new ways. We have the ability to turn on a whole array of new front door opportunities, and we have some pragmatic solutions that we've seen actually work here. So it's not like this is entirely untrodden ground. There is potential that we can actually build something that's interesting and meaningful. My question today is really, where are we up to practically from all of your perspectives? How far along this stream are we really? What's going to take to get here? So I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we might be able to have. Thank you for your attention. Bye.